Aloha and welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. It's September 24th, 2024, and it is Tuesday. Hope everybody's having a good start to their week. In the spotlight, we've got energy, as the artificial intelligence is requiring increasing amounts of it for the business models moving forward. So let's start off with the markets and what's going on there. With our relative risk indicators, we're looking at the MMRI is increasing. We're watching the risk factors rising, but we've also got deeper greed going on. So as this meter rises, more retail investors being pulled in for the eventual fleecing. So let's take a look at what's going on behind this. First off is the 10-year yield and relative strength of the dollar. Now, both of these, as I was saying, was gaining a bit of strength yesterday. That did put pressure on stocks for a bit. However, I think they hit some resistance, pulling back a bit. It's giving open to a bit of green in the pre-market, and we're also watching green coming back into the cryptocurrencies. So a little bit more of a rally returning because it's still the easy money by the backstop of the Federal Reserve, promising to lower rates not just now but also in the future. So we've got futures also deep in the green across the board. That is not necessarily a good sign. So while we're watching continuance, right now a lot of this is all due to central bank collaboration, and also in the background that less people are realizing is the currency wars that are heating up. So with this, we've got the European Central Bank and the Fed chiefs. They talk, but they do not coordinate. This, according to Christine Lagarde. She is the head of the ECB, and of course, this is a bit off from the truth because they work in lockstep. They must. If one goes too far off without the other, they cause severe distortions between the stock markets, which we're watching between the Chinese market at this moment. Now, we had China did do some easing. We'll talk about that in a moment. First off, our calendar today is actually quite light. We're hearing from Fed Governor Bowman. So she is going to speak prior to market open, and we're also getting home price index as well as consumer confidence. Now, they do kind of manipulate these numbers, but whatever numbers they put out, it's more important to hear the language that they're speaking about them, whether they're expected or whether they're far off, and they'll keep these in line to keep the shock from the market. That is their goal. Prior to the selection cycle in November, they are to keep the markets floating and no major shocks. So, with this, I'd like to go into a few of the stories of what's really working in the background. Now, we'll start with China over here. And this is because China did unleash a large stimulus package to revive their economy. So, with this, their stock markets, similar to Federal Reserve, took off. So, we got green markets from China, and then their economy is expected to get a boost from this. Now, you can save either your currency or your economy. It's very clear that they are going a little bit more towards the economy, which means they see severe downturn coming in here. Now, we've got another story come out from them, and they're getting the World Trade Order panel to probe into the United States Inflation Reduction Act. Now, they're saying that this gave unfair advantage, which I think is quite true, but whether this probe goes anywhere or not remains to be seen in the future. If this does, this includes such stimulus packages such as the chips. And that's mainly what they're targeting now. China has a lot of the rare earth minerals which are required to produce these chips for the artificial intelligence sector. So this is another major trade war going on behind the currency war, and the two work in tandem. So that's, if you have any questions on this, write me in the comments. I'll read it. Okay, with this, we've got big banks tripling global nuclear capacity by 2050. Now, again, energy is the major drive here. They're going back to nuclear. This is going to boost all of these nuclear stocks as well as some of the oil sector, which we're watching in the green right now. They've been under pressure lately because of the Middle East wars. Now we've got big banks tripling down on this. Some of the stocks that they have listed, Constellation Energy is one that was owning 3 Mile Island, which is now boosted by Microsoft. And we've also got Amazon looking into the sector. We'll talk about Amazon in a little bit. Now we've got regulatory and tech burdens driving Evans Bancorp to sell. The small to medium banks are still in trouble. There is still a lot more mergers, acquisitions, as well as defaults and closures that must happen in the small banking sector. Now, there's so many banks out there right now, probably a third of them will have to undergo this process. We're going to lose about a third of the banks. So if you've got your money in the bank, make sure you take out everything except what you need to pay your bills. Okay? Look at other places to put it that is safer, whether it's precious metals or someplace else. Just don't keep all of it, at least not in the same bank. Consider credit unions for less risk. Okay, with this, we've got a couple in the labor front stories, because this now is where the Fed is looking as to their next move. Now we've got Boeing striking workers. They rejected the contract offer, so we'll see where this goes for now, but that is going to affect their stock most definitely, because they cannot produce while this strike is going on. However, they're looking at north of 30% in wage increases. So what this is going to do effectively is drive these jobs out of the United States for demanding such high cost. We'll see how that happens. Moving forward along with them, we've also got United States ports threatened with strikes for the trade sector. So if the port dock workers go on strike, any of the goods that are coming in, and right now the United States is trade deficit, meaning the United States is dependent upon other countries in order to get their goods. Don't produce them themselves, so they must rely on other countries. So this is still, as I like to say, it's a war economy. And if it wasn't for the wars going on, it would be a significantly lower GDP for the United States, and it would be struggling. So we've got a company called Draganfly have just received military purchase orders for one of their drone sectors, basically. So these are military drones. They are for warfare, large purchase going on. So we see a perfect example here of the government basically doling out money. Federal Reserve prints, the politicians decide the flow and direction of this money going to the military contractors and building towards this war. This is how this cycle is happening. Okay, so along with this, we've got the United States sending more troops into the Middle East as violence arises between Israel and Hezbollah. So not just here, but also on the Arctic front, United States military is also bolstering in the Pacific and North Asia, getting ready for war there. There are significant increases to the numbers there. I've heard from several reliable sources that they're not necessarily putting out in the news. So with this, I've got a couple of things to finalize this. Now we've got Telegram. The whole story behind this is that the CEO was detained in France, basically under trumped up charges, and now they have pressured him into agreeing to share quote unquote bad users' information, to include IP addresses, phone numbers, to government authorities. Now, the problem with this is who gets to decide what quote unquote bad is. This is it's a clear attack on personal information as well as freedom and privacy. So they now are turning over information to the government. And with this, I had said that I would go back to a story about Amazon. Now, it seems unrelated, but a company called Upbit to store user data on AWS, that's Amazon Web Services, And what users should know about this? Well, what they're talking about is not what I'm talking about. What users should know about this is 100% of the data that you put there could be turned over or put out there or resold or hacked as it is. So with this, the government's getting larger companies to turn over your data so they can do any type of tracking that they decide you are quote unquote bad user for. So this clearly has some dystopian paths ahead of it. And so I just would like to warn you when using any of this what information you put in. So with that, I would like to wish you all a wonderful day. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.